All right, so we're back real quick. So we discussed the rotate command and toggling between object snap points or when selecting chains of elements. Toward the middle of the status bar, you will find toolbars for work sets and design options. Showing the current work sets during a collaborative project will help ensure you are placing elements on the correct work set. Work sharing will be covered in Chapter 5. If you're using design options, covered more in Chapter 11, working with phasing groups and design options. The status bar can also show you which option you're currently exploring. At the far right end, you will see a filter icon next to a number. When you select objects in a view window, the number of selected objects will be displayed here. Click the filter icon to open the filter dialog box and refine the selection set. The 5 icons next to the filter icon determine which objects in your model are eligible for selection. We'll discuss selecting elements in greater detail later, but I can do that really quick. I'll just do it right now. So I'll just grab these guys, these 2 things here. I'll also select this and chain block that. Come down here, notice that there are these items selected. Okay, and this is where you would filter all that out when you select multiple things. But we're going to get to all that. The drawing area is what I wanted to get to next. It's the next series of instructions on our step through this organic process. So I'm going to continue along. And again, I could be talking to the wall, but again, it makes sense to me. So, it is what it is in any event. The drawing area. The drawing area is the window into your design space. As shown previously, you can tile multiple views, and if you miss that, as you can see, I have 4 views open. If you go to View, and you go to Tile Views or Tab Views, you could tab the views and hit, ZA or, yeah, ZA. You can zoom on the keyboard. A shortcut key is ZA. It'll zoom and center all 4 of your viewports, for lack of a better term. I don't like to call them viewports. CAD does that, and they get into that paper space, model space differential. And I'd like to migrate away from that nomenclature. In any event, this is 4 views. All right, so again, this has bidirectional associativity. So if you move something in one view, it'll affect all the other views. And therein lies superiority of this dynamo, that you have one of the most powerful tools in your hands. It's humbling. In any event, the drawing area is the window into your design space. You can tile several views from any number of open files, or you can maximize the view windows. Or you can maximize them. Go into this view. In the other versions, there was a small tab here, but you can tile this view. I believe you take it see this new version. How can you get this sucker? Okay, there you go. You tab the views, and then you hit the first one, and therein lies the riddle of maximizing your view window. All right, so that being said, I'm going to undo and go back to our 4 windows. If you look, the undo button will work to a certain extent. Certain things it will not store in cache as memory. So I'm going to have to redo that in ZA again, just to be aware of that. Anyway, in any event, as you do this, even as I do this, as I get further and further towards more complex methods and procedures, I'm going to eventually run into resistance. I'm letting you know that. I'm going to run into resistance. That is going to slow me down, and you'll notice it. I'll allow you to see it. All right, so, because I've been critiqued, this is an education assessment, bidirectionally, on your end and my end. Our end, it's an educational assessment. Anyway, I'm going to roll smokes as I go, but again, the drawing area is the window into your design space. It's your world. Like Bob Ross said, it's your world. Happy little tree over there somewhere. We can get to that. Now, Again, the shortcut keys here. When the view windows in the drawing are maximized, press Control plus Tab on the keyboard to cycle through open views. To reverse the cycling, press Control plus Shift plus Tab. Alternatively, you can utilize the Switch Windows functionality located in the Windows panel of the View tab to go directly to the view you want to see. Choose the view from your project browser. So again, you can do lots of things. Lots of different ways that you could toggle through things. Switch views, you can go to here. To work in the view, you have to be actively in the view. Actively in the view. So again, all of these view control tools are important. Now, I just double clicked the wheel. This was zoomed this way. All I did to get it to center and be perfect in the center of the view was just push down twice on my wheel, on my mouse. I have a 2-button mouse with a wheel. I just double clicked on the wheel, pushed down on it, twice double clicked on it, and it centered the view. So now with all these views open, I can also go up to close inactive. Being this is the active view, I can close inactive, and now all I have is the power view open. So things like this you need to go through, and these shortcut keys to reverse the cycling and the control tabs and all that, you could practice that on your own. In any event, if you decide to use tiled views when you work in Revit, you should be aware of a subtle limitation. You'll be able to zoom into only the extents that are defined by the drawing area. If you want to get around this limitation, here's a helpful tip. Create a new sheet, but then delete the sheet border. This is now a workspace for any view of the project. Just be sure to label it as a working sheet apart from your documentation set. Now you can create duplicate views of any of your project views and assemble them in the working space. Zooming in and out is much more fluid and yet limited to the extents of one drawing area. You can create a keyboard shortcut to activate and deactivate views, which is helpful. We could do that. Now, if you decide to tile the views when you work, let's open a couple. Let's open up these 4. Let's do 4. And let's tile the views, and let's ZA and get them all centered. Now we have the East Electric elevation, first floor lighting, first floor ceiling or reflected ceiling plan, and first floor power. We're not going to go off on a tangent. We're not going to go to the Vatican yet. We'll hold our thoughts. We'll mind our manners, and then we go to the first floor power plant. So now, what they're saying is that you should be aware of the subtle limitation if you decide to use tile views when you work in Revit. Well, think about that. You just divided your canvas into 4. Now your canvas went from this size to quartered, right? Which is your eyes are closing. Your eyes are closing. It's a bug's life, man. It's a bug's life. Think of yourself as a fly with a compound eye. Silly. In any event. Ever been to Epcot Center, for Christ's sakes? All right, so, again, what they're saying is you can create a sheet. You can create a new sheet, and then you can delete the title block. You can take one of these views, drag it on to the title block, and then you can duplicate the sheet. You can duplicate the view, or blah, 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 blah. Let's read back. If you want to get around this limitation, here's a helpful. Create a new sheet, but then delete the sheet border. This is now a workspace for any new project, any view of the project. Just be sure to label it as a working sheet apart from your documentation set. Now you can create duplicate views of any of your project views and assemble them in this working space. Zooming in and out is much more fluid. Oh, okay, so what they're saying is you could actually now take this, put this over here, and if you wanted to make this smaller, knowing that it's a lighting plan, you can go to the lighting plan, change the view scale, okay, and then now back in the view, it's tinier. Now you can take another view, you can take the ceiling elevation, change its scale factor. And notice how it didn't change here. Then just drag Ceiling Electric. Oh, that's a good name for a company. Ceiling Electric. Notice how it inherits the scale factor from its view. It inherits the scale factor from its view. Remind yourself of that. It inherits the scale factor from the view. 330 seconds, 330 seconds. Dal had a problem with that. Those two, they were using the same eyeball. The CEO, the owner of Dal Design Group, and his vellum overlay guy, they share the same eyeball. Seriously, if they put their heads together, they make an ass. I'm being facetious. I was out of there in a week. They didn't like me. All right. Anyway, they were a woman in a very nice floral dress, some Indian girl doing the drafting in AutoCAD LT. That's good for the eyes. All right. Now, that's what they said to do in that preceding passage. That was a helpful tip. All right. So now what they're saying is now if you close all these other active views, and if you tile views, tab views, double click this one right with the center wheel. And now what it's saying is you have a little more, you have carte blanche a little more. You have carte blanche just a little more. Not much more, but between 32 and 40, 32 and 44, 48 by 36, all those numbers, 8.5 by 11. You have the ability to inversely and directly proportion your view. I don't know if that makes sense to you. Think of it as an ohm, a megohm, a megger. Think of it as a megger. We're meggering up the building. Fucking static electricity. It's like rubbing a balloon on your head. All right, I'm getting silly. Let's not go into a state of hysteresis. All right, so now, if we go back to the first floor power plan, save the project, let me just double check, make sure I can sync hell with Central. Go to collaborate, sync with Central, no error warnings, relinquish all of mine. And now I'll synchronize. I'll give up my rights. All right, so I'm going to stay on the power plan, continue along. In the drawing area, if you decide to use tile views, blah, 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 blah. The view control bar, very important, very important. I'm going to pause for a second, I'm going to roll another one, another nail in my coffin. My sister, right? I remember at my mother's funeral, her wake, she stuck a Marlboro Light in her fucking pocket. I have a sick family. What's the story with that? Existentialism is the story of that. Theodore Lipinski was from the Byzantine Empire. I'm a sick fuck. I gotta stop with the history. I'm starting not to care about money again. I remember when my mother, want to hear a funny story? My sisters will deny this. My father was running around with some chick Dee Dee on Clendenny in Jersey City. My mother, her mother lived in a basement of it, and she shoveled coal into a coal furnace near St. Aloysius High School in Jersey City. My mother, anyway, I'm not going to talk about my mother's father, talk about my mother's mother. Anyway, that's what my mother's mother did for a living, to rent and to live there. She lived in the basement, of course, from St. Aloysius, and she shoveled coal into a coal-burning furnace. All right, now, my mother, on the other hand, well, I smoked a cigarette. My mother they divorced, and my father was over this chick's house, Aunt Dee Dee. My mother dropped me off there for the first time. Anyway, my Uncle George is a Jersey City cop. My Aunt Dottie was a dispatcher. Sure enough, I couldn't fucking believe it. I pull up in front of the fucking house my mother's driving, opens the glove compartment. She goes, okay, you can go with your father now. She goes, but first I want you to see something. I was like, what? She opens the glove compartment, fucking 38 caliber revolver in the fucking thing. I was like, all right, I left. It wasn't nothing to me. My uncle used to put me on the hood of his police car with a 12-gauge shotgun down Liberty State Park. I used to just shoot bagfuls of rabbits. I had friends, we used to kill everything around here. This is like a game preserve to me. Just to let you know. Don't come around here. Just don't come around here. I'm one of the nicer ones. I'm one of the nice guys. There's some sick fucks in this county, this neighborhood, this whole entire town. Something, I don't know what it is with Bayonne. I heard that it used to be a resort town for the rich and affluent from Manhattan. Those are just rumors. Sometimes I hear them whispering. Anyway, I've been around, man. I've been all over the world. And there's no place like home. That's all. That's all I'm saying. It's a peninsula. Sometimes it acts like an island. The view control bar. The view control bar. I'm all in, man. I'm always all in. I'm always all in. Indian poker, right? We've all made mistakes as kids. We've been deviants. We're the filthiest. We're the worst. It's the socias versus the prefects, or it's the House of Slytherin versus all the other fucking houses. But I'm not going into the Room of Lost Souls from Beetlejuice. That's for a different show. I'm not Mother Teresa. The view control bar. The view control bar is located in the bottom of the view, as we looked. Let's hover over the buttons. Scale factor. Detail level. Visual style. Sun path. Shadows. Crop view. Crop region. Temporary hide, isolate. I've been there. I ran away from home plenty of times. Reveal hidden elements. I don't want to know I don't even want to know what the fuck was going on. Save me the heartache. Reveal hidden elements. Take it to your grave. Work sharing display off. Temporary view properties. Hide analytical model. Reveal constraints. In any event. All right, so that's the view control bar. All these little settings here, these little icons that you can see, are also available within the properties palette. This view is controlled either through these series of commands or settings or calibrations to a certain extent, parameters. They're telling you not to show you the solar study. I'm just letting you know. They don't want you to see the solar study. Whoever it is doesn't want you to see it. All right. This is not easy, this part. This is where it gets difficult. I've set this template up a little bit. I've linked in from some of my mentors, some of the components, and I'm going to call them components. These instruments here, I linked in 07 MEP Commercial Complete REVIT from a mentor of mine. I linked in Commercial Architectural Model from a mentor of mine. And I unloaded these two, Commercial Site and Commercial Structure. I'm not a licensed surveyor, and nor am I a licensed structural engineer. We're going to get to that. I'm something else. Sometimes I talk too much. Sometimes I get on your nerves. I can make my daughter get so neurotic, she's ready to throw me out of the car. My kids are extremely sensitive to what they've been through. In any event, the view control bar. Some of the buttons in the view control bar are just shortcuts to view parameters that are also available from the properties palette. Scale, detail level, crop view, and show, hide, crop. There's a crop here. There's a crop. And their kids playing in it. It's like National Lampoon's Vacation with Eddie, cousin Eddie. There are kids playing over there. So they're found in both the view control bar and the properties palette. The visual style button allows you to select from a short list of graphic display modes that can be customized in detail with the graphic display options in the property palette. Okay, so visual style, right? We all have images, everything, right? How do you look? I look like a buzzard that just flew in off a shit wagon. Okay, that's my visual style. I look like the buzzard of a shit wagon. I don't know about your display style. I'm weathered. In any event, again, you can see all these view styles are also available within the properties palette. So, okay, so now other buttons in the view control bar are unique commands. One example is the temporary hide isolate command, which helps users more readily see specific elements while working in a view. When you select an object in a view window, use this button to select from various tools to hide or isolate either the selected objects or the entire category of objects. Temporary visibility states do not affect printing, and the view window will display a turquoise border until the temporary visibility is reset. Next, to hide/isolate button, next to the hide/isolate button is the reveal hidden elements button. Use this tool to highlight any elements that are hidden in the current view, either temporarily or through other methods. The work sharing display button is available only on projects where work sharing is enabled. Work sharing display can be enabled and configured in any view to illustrate owner's checkout status, model updates, and work sets. Refer to Chapter 5 for detailed explanation of these visibility features. The Show Hide Analytical Model button allows you to quickly display analytical graphics that are commonly used by the structural MEP tools in REVIT. Finally, the Reveal Constraints button temporarily displays all the model-based constraints visible in the current view. This is useful for troubleshooting model elements that might not be behaving as expected. Now, we're going to get to all of this because one thing that is very important to understand in tandem with that following passage is our view templates. That's a lot of words. That's a lot of things to have to do, right? That's a lot. That's a lot of things. Okay, now, reveal hidden elements. If you notice, you can see there are things now that you could see that you didn't see temporarily. For example, the project base point. Ow, LASIK. If I tab over the project base point, whoops. If I tab, the project survey point, internal shared site. Working against that. That is another thing that you're going to have to wrap your mind around. It's not easy. I have some friends that can help, but it's not easy. There are things that you can see, and there are things that you can't. You'll see what they let you see. Watch some James Bond movies. You'll understand about biometric sensing. or there's lots of different bells and whistles. In any event, I walk straight through. I'm get smart. That's all. I'm stupid. All right, so hide them again. Let's just temporarily show them real quick. Lickety split. Lickety split. Just know there's more to this than meets the eye. I don't remember putting in those furnaces and those boilers. None of that mechanical stuff. Whatever it is, I don't remember putting it in. I'm just letting you know. Who could it be now? I'm going to put on some music. I'm going to post this to Facebook. I'm going to put on some music.
One of the great challenges in this world is knowing enough about a subject to think you're right.
That's my empathy coming out. But templates are important, and you have to create them. Because to be perfectly honest with you, how do you think I was able to achieve this particular view? This particular view was included as a view template within another project. Somebody gave it to me. We can't get the view templates right now. I'd like to. It's important. But photorealism may not be for you. At some point, at some point, you have to make a delineation between what you do for a living, right? What do you do for a living? Are you sitting around watching the world go by? Are you doing something about it? Because again, you know, trickle-down economics, there's a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover. How much is it a month for this subscription? It's not chump change. It's not chump change. So again, there's a lot of things we have to cover. I can't select that pump right now. I can't tell you why yet. I can't tell you why. Because it'll screw you up. So let's, even though this book, it moves at a certain pace, I don't want to lose anybody. And when it comes to the hierarchical display properties of these elements, there's a little more to it that needs to be discussed. So as far as graphic display options, that's something we're going to wait till we get into the further chapters of visualization to reiterate it. It's well beyond this step. As much as Stevens Institute of Technology likes to utilize this particular method with their duckbills, quacking all the way up and down every bar and every corner in Hoboken, I'm not 100% convinced that Stevens is on the right track. A hold that poised that relaxed. All right, in any event, work plane viewer. Work plane viewer is what we're going to hit next. Now we're in the 3D view, that one. Now we're in this one with this display view, this display template applied to it. Let's leave it at that. Most modeling tools and commands require an active work plane on which to place geometry. When you are working in a plan view, the work plane is usually set to the current level associated with the view. In a 3D section or elevation view, the definition of an active work plane may be a bit more confusing. Lobby events. Ugh. Brr. In a 3D section elevation view, the definition of an active work plane may be a bit more confusing. In addition to levels, work planes can be defined as reference planes, a structural grid or a surface of another object. To help you visualize an active work plane, a work plane viewer is available on REVIT. Be aware that an active work plane could be perpendicular to your orientation if the view is adjusted three-dimensionally. It's not a bad thing. It's delay skew, I'll tell you that. It has a lot to do with delay skew and aspect ratio. So, I'm going to smoke this roach. I don't have any friends. You know what I mean? They move, they marry, they go away. You hover around your nest, hoping where I shouldn't say you hover around your nest. You hover around where your kids nested, and then you can hope to do your best. They come and go. Someone once told me that the good ones come back, and the bad ones don't, to their hometowns. But for some godforsaken reason, I've been back with this grant since, I don't know, October, September, and I've been just trying to stay out of jail. Tow trucks, police, you name it, it happens to me. You want to talk about bad luck? I hemorrhage cash. I thought you get a grant from the government and everything's going to be okay. I got the money. I felt like they wanted it back. They were going to put me in jail for it. It wasn't like I thought. I thought, okay, I'll go to, I'll live a little bit. I'll suffer, and then the government, Uncle Sam's going to come and rescue me. I got the grant. And I felt like they stuck their fingers down my throat and made me give it back. In any event, that's a whole other fucking story. You can go ask Donna Russo up in Bayonne City Hall about that. I don't know what the fuck's going on. I'm just telling you, this is a crazy fucking town. In any event, nepotism, I think it's nepotism. All right. Be aware of that, because we're going to do it right now. We're going to mess around with the work plane a little bit. Most modeling tools and commands require an active work plane on which to place geometry. When you are working in a plan view, the work plane is usually set to the current level, right? You're looking at it. It's plumb, it's square. Let it stay there. If you're in a work plane, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But now, the work plane is usually set to the current level associated with the view. In a 3D section or elevation view, the definition of an active view work plane may be a bit more confusing. In addition to levels, work planes can be defined as reference planes. A structural grid or a surface of another object. To help you, this is really important with crown boxes on top of switchgear. To help you visualize an active work plane, a work plane viewer is available in REVIT. Be aware that an active work plane could be perpendicular to your orientation if the view is adjusted three-dimensionally. Plus, the powers that be can watch you as you're working. Take control of the screen, shit like that. Like, okay, you can relinquish controls, and they can take over, autopilot. Have you ever been in a Turkish prison? Have you ever seen Airplane? I picked a bad week to quit sniffing glue. This is a bad week. I have a little weed left. A little bit. I have a little left. So far, so good. I went to see Diane Leshak up in ShopRite Pharmacy. I asked her how much Invega Sustenna was injection. She told me for the lowest, $2,600 per injection for Invega Sustenna. I told her I'm going to go home and smoke a joint. She said, good idea. I'd exhaust my HRA with 2 shots. Or I can just relax. You know what I mean? Man, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. I was only there once. I was there 15 minutes. It's not my forte. I'm not a gambler, man. I only bet on a short thing. All right, so now the work plane viewer. Let's take a look at the roof, for starters. All right, so notice that we can't select the roof because it's the linked model. We haven't put really anything into this model at all. The only thing I did, I drew a rectangle. Right? If you recall, I rotated it. That's all I really did. I didn't do much. I can't really do much more because I didn't create any of this. These are all linked models. So I could open up these links, but what if they're already perfect? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. So let's demonstrate it a different way. Let's move over here a little bit. Let's take a look at View Cube, which we're going to get into. Now, let's just hold the View Cube orientated as per north. Azimuth is going to play an important part of this. You're going to get confused. AutoCAD, it'll burn the capillaries out of your fucking eyeballs. It will. A dark, deep, black hole with light, where even light doesn't escape. Working in a vacuum. All right, so let's do it easily. So I'm going to go to architecture. I'm going to go to massing. I'm going to actually mass in place. Revit has enabled the show mass mode, so the newly created mass will be visible. To temporarily show hide masses, select the Massing and Site ribbon tab, and then click the Show Mass button on the massing panel. Masses will not print or export unless you make the mass category permanently visible in the View Visibility Graphics dialog, which we're going to get to because that could all be controlled through a View template. So it is enabled, and I'm just going to call it Mass 1. He's dead, and my mother's stiff on the second floor. Still. Stiff. It's still. They'll be still soon. So let's create the mass Now, notice a few things opened up. This is kind of tricky. I'm not expecting you to follow along at home. I'm just actually going to draw a quick mass. So I'm just going to draw a quick rectangle on this work plane. And I'm going to create a form out of it, a solid form. And I'm just going to extrude it a little bit. Bandwidth hog. I'm going to finish in place. Actually, what I'd like to do is see if I can sculpt this a little differently to give you a better idea of the power of a dynamo. So now we have this thing. What is it? It's a thing. It's a form. It's the blob. It's the blob. The blob attacks. The blob attacks. Okay, so now we have this mesh. I told you it was a harmonica earlier. No one wanted to listen. Nobody wanted to listen. It always falls on deaf ears when I talk. It's just computer garbage. I know. Osmosis is the division of water, the dissolution of water through a semi-permeable membrane. Earthworm Jim, you fucking idiots. All right, so the desalinization plant. So we have this mass now. First it was a form, and then it was a mass once we finished it. Before I go any further, I want to point something to you real quick. Mass floors. I want you to watch this tool someday. I'm not going to get into this yet, because skyscraping is something else. Skyscraping is a different hobby. So are bridge jumpers. That's a whole other hobby. There's these CEOs. It's like what was that movie with Tim Robbins? The Hudsucker Proxy. They just run out of the boardroom, diving out of the fucking executive offices. Anyway, people are losing fortunes. Family fortunes are being lost as we speak. Have some respect. All right, so work plane, architecture, work plane, panel, set, show. So now, if we show it, you see this blue, beautiful, opaque work plane? Well, if I select it, what do you know? It's an element. It's a work plane grid. And it has spacing that you can control. A grid within a grid, if you will. The big grid. Lose the grid or lose your job. All right, now, so that's where the work plane's set, on level 1, right? Go into level 1, power. What do you know? There it is. Starting to look like a piece of graph paper. Let me see if this wire will reach. This is free. Think about it. It isn't rocket science per se, right? Quadrule, I got a quadrule one over to it. Oh, there it is. With all my tickets, my bail receipts. Hold on, get rid of my bail receipts. Well, that's what you're getting, right? Isn't it the same thing? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. All right. Thing. It's the same thing. Drafting. All right, so back to the 3D view. Take a look. Here's our mass. We'll go to set. No, a dialog box is going to pop up. You'll see work plane, current work plane, name level 1, show, which we did, right? We showed it. There it is. Specify a new work plane. This is where the modeling gets really intense. Pick a plane, select a plane. We only have 2 levels, level 1 and level 2. We can add more if we would like. Or you can pick a plane. Or pick a line and use the work plane it was sketched in. When we get to cornices, yeah, it's going to rock your world. We'll get there. When you get to a parapet and cornices and millwork, you want to talk about laser modeling. You want to talk about a lumber yard. Wait till you see what this thing can do with that. It goes beyond comprehension. And I'll give hats off to Balkan Architects. Balkan, that kid, oh my Lord. He's one of those. He's one of those coordinators that you want. He knows architecture. I don't know if he knows systems. In any event, he probably does. That's all he does all day. All right, so pick a plane instead. Let's pick a plane. Notice when I come over to this form, and I hover over, you'll notice that I can change the work plane. And now the work plane's there. Let's take a look at this. Static electricity. I told you, you have to know about static and dynamic fields because there's absolutely no reason why we couldn't draw something else. Now I can keep going and going and going and going and going and going. But the important aspect to remember is that things are not what they appear. Things are not what they appear. Transparency is important. It's important. Let me tell you, knowing your work plane is important, especially in the electrical world when we're talking about conduits. It's per 100, man. It's per 100. Rome wasn't built in a day. It's per 100. Let's not get into all this just yet. There's a lot to it. We'll get to this soon. Sooner or later. We'll get there soon. All right. So now, that's a brief tutorial on the work plane. I'm running out of space on this video, so I'm unfortunately going to have to stop. Anyway, just a bit of information about me sprinkled in there with some technical information. I don't want it to just die on.